Hello and welcome back to the Building HVAC Science Podcast. Our podcast aims to help create better, more knowledgeable HVAC and building performance pros so they can do better work for their customers. Hey, first, I'll give you a couple quotes from the episode. Better isn't a goal, it's a direction. HVAC can feel like a house of mirrors for homeowners, and the cure is transparency plus measured results. And we're not trying to find the perfect contractor, we're trying to find the contractor who keeps learning and won't get complacent. So in this episode, Eric Kaiser becomes the host and I become the guest, as well as Kevin Hart from the Better HVAC Alliance, Darren Reuter, and Huff, Hoffmaster from Rewiring America. In this episode, we lay out the shared problem. Homeowners face significant information disadvantage when buying HVAC and even when repairing it. And they often have to make huge financial decisions with no easy way to verify quality beyond the marketing, perhaps the promises, or the price. Now that gap leads to mistrust, inconsistent outcomes, and too many box swaps or inefficient installations. That, along with missizing, duct performance issues, lack of commissioning, and lack of homeowner education. Better HVAC exists to help tip the odds back towards the homeowner by connecting people to contractors and individuals who commit to doing measured, commissioned work, and by aggregating trusted educational resources in one place. Rewiring America adds the consumer education electrification planning layer, plus a push to scale adoption responsibly with real contractor standards behind it. Now, this partnership, which we've worked on, ties these strengths together. Instead of building separate directories, they align on a shared pledge and a badging approach that helps homeowners and peers, that's contractor peers, technician peers, pros, who are trained, insured, licensed, and willing to follow best practices, now, especially for heat pumps and whole home electrification journeys, and that also includes weatherization and energy auditing. So take a listen to this episode. Hopefully you get a better grasp of what Rewiring America is up to, what Better HVAC is up to, and what we are up to together.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Building HVAC Science Podcast. Eric Kaiser here. Almost prepared as we started that recording. I think we're doing good now. We got a whole bunch of guests here today. Bill Spohn is actually kind of a guest on this show today instead of a host, so that's going to be a little bit different. We have got, from Rewiring America, Darren Reuter and Huff Hoffmaster, and from Better HVAC, we have Kevin Hart and the aforementioned Bill Spohn. So we're going to dig into things a little bit, but I want to say welcome to everybody, and we're going to do a little round robin here as well and get everybody's introductions. So let's kick this off. Kevin, what's your background? Who are you with? And how did you get there?
Okay. I started off as an electrician at a high school and then pivoted into entrepreneurship, got really obsessed with indoor air quality, went down a rabbit hole of measuring the things that we can't see so that we can do something about it, and making sensors, and then getting into, okay, we have data, now let's control things, let's now automate things because people don't want to be flipping switches all the time every day. So that's the company Haven IAQ that I founded a decade ago. And so now we pivoted several times into the place we are today with our room monitor, central monitor, and central controller.
Very cool. And how did you end up with Better HVAC?
So Bill and I have both been selling tools, advanced tools, and I would say that Haven also sells fairly advanced tools, indoor air quality monitors. So that's not something maybe the average HVAC contractor is going to sell. And what we found is that there are a lot of contractors out there who will buy these advanced tools, and they just look really different than the average contractor. They're really focused on delivering a measured and commissioned experience to the homeowner. They're making sure they're delivering what they say they're going to deliver. We've just been seeing there's a grassroots movement of people who really care. They want to deliver results. And so Better HVAC for me was seeing the movement and thinking, how can we amplify this movement beyond just the few people who show up, for example, at the symposium, which is happening in a few weeks from recording here. How can we expand this throughout the nation, throughout all of North America? And how do we help people find this movement? And so that's where Better HVAC has come from, is amplifying that movement.
Very cool. Very cool. Let's pivot over here. Huff, tossing the microphone your way. Who are you? Where'd you come from? How'd you get here?
So I'll give you my God-given name. Real name is actually Thomas Hoffmaster, but everybody calls me Huff because I was the second. My dad was also in the heat and air conditioning business. And in West Virginia, either get called Junior or something else. And my mother hated Junior. So now I'm Huff. I can't tell you how many times people ask me, is that your real name? It's close enough. My life reads like a country song. My mother never once called me by my real name. It's not just a country song. It's true. And so where did that come from? So I started in the business. Again, my dad was in HVAC, so I worked with him sometimes during the summers. He was more of a commercial sheet metal guy. And I decided I wanted to get into service because it's not that I don't like sheet metal. I actually enjoy it more now than I did then, but I wanted to get into the service because I was fascinated by electricity and things like that. And ended up in the HVAC world working for a really good contractor who treated me like a son and helped me understand a lot and learn from a lot. His name was John Whitman. He's still a mentor to me this day. Then I grew out of that, ended up working for some OEMs, doing technical support. And then finally, after having enough of technical support world, I launched into my own business in consulting and training. And it was doing fine. I was staying busy, but this opportunity came for Rewiring America. And Rewiring America is a nonprofit, very big voice in the electrification space. And primarily what they were looking for at the time that I ended up being hired on was a contractor success manager. And what that means is the fact is they were helping people create electrification plans. People were wanting to install high efficiency heat pumps. And we were wanted to make sure that the end users were getting what they were paying for. In other words, the high efficiency heat pump was being installed correctly. And so they needed someone that understood that. And so that's why they hired me on, was to help navigate those waters, to help define what a successful installation is, what are the parameters we're looking for, and what does a contractor that is a high-end, high-efficiency type of contractor, what do they look like? And helping define that and then make sure that happens. So I'm the contractor success manager here at Rewiring America. And in that process, ended up connecting with Bill and Kevin, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But it spoke to me because with low to moderate income homes, a lot of people barely have enough money to buy these systems, and to buy them and not have them installed correctly, it's sad. So I'm here to try to make sure that at least the folks that are involved with Rewire America get a quality job and that they do better. We'll get into that better later on. So
sounds good. Thanks, Huff. That's a pretty comprehensive update on you there. And you're about to embark on an adventure with a school bus next week, I understand.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that some other time, maybe.
Yeah, I sometimes don't know what to do with myself. I just get my hand in too much.
Darren, how about you?
I don't have as long of a story as Huff and Kevin here, maybe one day, but I was always data-driven growing up. And so that led me down the path of engineering. Started out in computer science and software engineering, realized I hated that, switched to electrical, graduated, actually started working with Carrier, and ironically enough, I was doing software. So it came full circle. I was doing model-based development for our variable speed product lines there at Carrier. So green speed type of units, if you're familiar. And I did that for about half a decade. And I guess backing up, previously, I had also worked at GE Appliances. So I was already familiar with the refrigeration circuit and vapor compression cycle, which probably helped me land my role at Carrier. But while I was working at these places, I got to work on all the R&D and testing and design. But an opportunity came up where Rewiring America had offered me an interview. And again, like Huff had mentioned, it's a nonprofit and it was electrification and it was mission aligned with what I personally felt and wanted to align myself with. And working in these R&D opportunities, it was all high-end product that's pretty expensive. And so one of the opportunities I had at Rewiring America was to bring this product to the masses at scale by reducing the upfront costs foremost, but also looking at how we optimize for the operating cost as a whole. That was pretty important to me as well. So here I am today and supporting Huff. We're joined at the hip, and we've both been working with Kevin and Bill recently, and we'll get more into that.
Bill, let's kick it over to you. Darren, thanks very much for that. Bill, kick it over to you. And
I don't want to go through my whole resume, and people here probably have a little idea who I am, but I would say just curiosity, willingness to help, and along with Huff, don't know what to do with myself. Just keep on finding new things to do, whether I have the time to or not. But in some of those things where maybe a lot of people would question it, I thrive in that environment, like doing this podcast. Don't have to do it. Love to do it. Don't have to do better HVAC. Love to do it. So I like people, technology, in business in that order. Maybe that's enough.
That's a lot, honestly. That's a lot of the world right there. So very cool. Let's dig into these organizations and kind of understand these organizations, because the two organizations, Rewiring America and Better HVAC, have a partnership together. But let's dig into each organization separately and then figure out how the two of them meld together and what they're doing together. Darren, you want to take us through a little bit deeper on what all Rewiring America does? And really, I'd like to dig into how it's going to help the end user, the consumer. I'm assuming you've got to go through some contractors. You got to have some contractor support there. But ultimately, we're trying to help the consumer out in the end.
There's multiple facets to Rewiring America. I think its birth and origin was really focused on like the policy work and research and understanding what even electrification means and how it impacts the typical household. But I think from there, it's really evolved. And there's been a lot of staff and support brought in to help support a lot of the electrification programs that we've had, specifically last year, that we really tried to pilot and scale. In addition to that, though, we've also tried to manage a lot of the tools and the resources that are available. And I think one of the things that Rewiring America prides itself well with is its ability to educate the consumer. So that's available through our electrification coaches program, which we can get a little bit more into. I think, Bill, you actually recently went through that program.
I did, yes.
It's a pretty robust program. And that's been growing. I think we're on our 10th cohort, which is anything from electrification enthusiasts to the typical household that just wants to know more about electrification. There's actually, from what I've heard, a wait list to join that program. We also have all these different tools. We have incentives calculators based on where the individual or the household is located. They can understand whether electrification is the right fit for them. And of course, just at a bare bones, what is the definition of electrification, how it certainly affects them. A lot of our discussion today has probably evolved around HVAC, but electrification is a lot bigger than that. Obviously, that's the biggest load in a typical household, but Rewiring America has also dabbled in solar, smaller electrification appliances, heat pump water heaters, heat pump dryers, induction stovetops, and trying to promote that product where it's viable and where there's certainly an ROI or a benefit, along with any other motivations that any household has. That's a premise. And then more recently, Huff and I have been a lot more involved by working with contractors and the OEMs specifically. We have these specific programs where we're going to markets, promoting electrification where it makes sense, when it makes sense, and trying to drive up that adoption. And in order for us to make that work, we can do all the marketing in the world, but we need the OEMs and the contractors to support those efforts. And so we've done anything from negotiating specific deals with OEMs and contractors to reduce that upfront cost, but while also trying to maintain this idea of high level quality with each job that we're doing. And we try to keep that in mind with the brand that we certainly align ourselves to with what's being installed, but also the contractor that's doing that work.
Awesome. And that's a lot of information. Just so people know, where can they find out more about this if they need to?
Yeah, so rewiringamerica.org is the main website that we have, but I mentioned a lot of these tools that are available. For a lot of the consumers that are trying to find a contractor, connect with these tools, create electrification plans, homes.rewiringamerica.org is the go-to website.
Sounds good. Let's see. I'm going to kick it over here to Kevin. And Kevin, can you give me a little bit about what is Better HVAC and what is it doing for the consumers?
Yeah. I was thinking about this morning. HVAC for a homeowner, for a consumer, it's somewhere between a house of illusions, a house of mirrors, and a game show. The other day I was driving and I saw a service truck, and on it said family owned and something like small enough that we care. And I happen to know that company years ago got acquired by the largest national consolidator of HVAC companies in our country. So everything from the truck that shows up to the whole sales pitch to even the diagnostics and how those are presented, I think for a consumer can be a little bit of being on a game show. And everything from the price is right to am I being fooled along the way? There's a lot of mistrust, I think there's a real gap in credibility in the industry. There's been a lot of TV shows that have exposed people lying about the need to replace the system. And it's a bit of a house of illusions. Like you think you're getting one thing, but you're not. HVAC is really complicated. It's like if you order a couch and the couch shows up and somebody wheels the couch in, you're like, that is the couch I pointed to in the flyer. And here it is. And I can sit on it and I can judge that it's comfortable. With HVAC, you point at an appliance. It does show up. You can see it. It's in your utility room. But there's so much more to it, isn't there? Maybe it blows warm air or cold air on day one of the install. But there's so much more to the story. And I think the consumer, the homeowner, they're at such a disadvantage of information. There's an asymmetry of information that the homeowner has to deal with here. And it's not an inexpensive purchase. We're talking about, it's really skyrocketed. I mean, my parents still think HVAC is $4,000. I mean, it's easily $10,000 to $20,000 for a system these days. And so that's not a small purchase. That's a car. In a lot of cases, that's the cost of a vehicle. And you're going to do your due diligence. You're going to research what the best brand is, what the fuel efficiency is, how comfortable that ride is. When it comes to HVAC, I mean, it's just very hard for the consumer to do that type of research. And for some reason, a lot of them just don't even do that research. It's like there's a bit of a gap there where they have to, again, play the game show, play the House of Illusions game instead to try to figure out, do I trust this person? Or are they going to give me the lowest price? And that's really not something that's going to optimize for the best outcome for the homeowner. And this is something we intimately know. We can be passionate because we're in the industry and we know what it's like to have a properly sized system where there's been a load calculation, where the system's been commissioned, where the airflow is functioning with the right static pressure. We know that's going to deliver longevity, efficiency, comfort. And there's a lot more that you can get out of an install. There's someone who could take days to do an install versus hours. And so I think better HVAC has been born with this purpose. And I'll let Bill restate it in his own words at some point. But for me, it's that the homeowner eventually is able to find the contractor who shares this passion for doing a really good job. I'm going to pay this money, and I want someone who similarly is going to be honest and deliver the outcome that I want, which is they're doing all the right steps. And so I think it's our role to help, and frankly, our industry's role to help homeowners understand what are those steps? What are those things they should be asking for? Who are the contractors they should be looking for? And even with Rewiring America, is it right for me to go the electrification path, the dual fuel path? That's where I think we can play a role in the industry, is to provide the education, to provide a network of contractors who have committed, who have signed a pledge to say that we will do a good quality job, and who increasingly can show that they've taken certain training. And I think where we're even headed is we'll follow a certain process and prove results. I think that's an area on our roadmap that we'll eventually get to.
Very nice. So basically what I'm hearing out of that, I think, is connecting homeowners with passionate contractors who want to do a better job.
Yeah.
Does that sound about right, Bill?
That does. And I'll just say, yesterday afternoon, I get an email from Russ King. He says, I have somebody who's struggling with something in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. I know Pennsylvania is a big state. Can you help me find someone? I went immediately to the Better HVAC directory. Now, those people were far away, but through another person, I've got another person to sign up for the directory who's closer to this customer. And Russ used a term like not just a box swapper, someone who actually will try to solve the problem. I see all these nodding heads here, which means we're on the same page.
Yeah, HVAC is, as Kevin alluded to there, I agree, is a big, challenging thing to really understand. And that's coming from a person who got into the industry 20 some years ago and was told, you just need a meter and some screwdrivers and a set of gauges. You'll be all right. That didn't last long. And then I met Bill, and that really didn't last long. But that's okay. So now we got a good idea of what's going on with each of these organizations. Who wants to jump in here and explain the tie-up and the connection between the two organizations and what you're doing together?
I'll take a stab at that, but would appreciate anyone else chiming in. The term Better HVAC, best of my recollection, it started getting kicked around in 2022, 2023 by people like Nate Adams and Jim Bergman. And then it started to solidify actually at the HVAC School Symposium with the help of Ben Reed, Kevin, and I. We really tried to make something congeal and come together. Then Kevin and I filtered it down and sorted it out by the end of 24 into a few key components. And one of those components was this directory of professionals that presented some kind of evidence of good work or training or certification. And I'm not exactly sure. I think around the same time, like in early 25, when I met Huff and we started talking about different things. And actually Jim Bergman said, hey, you got to meet this guy, Tom Hoffmaster. And Hoffmaster, and he said, he's really doing a lot of great things. And I got to meet you, got to talk to you. And what was most impressive to me was your personal experience with heat pumps, which led you to be working at Rewiring America, and how that was not driven by anything else than just delivering a great experience and a great product. I think maybe you and Darren got together and said, hey, we need help building a directory. And these guys are already building a directory. Why reinvent the wheel? And why don't you take it from there?
Anytime that you create something, right, you're typically solving for a problem. So we know that our industry really needs help, and Better HVAC, I believe, was developed for that. And so we needed a directory because I use these numbers, and Darren laughs at me a little bit, but I'm weird about memorizing stats. We've had over 1 million people visit to our website and use our online tools. We've had over 45,000 people actually create electrification plans, and 25% of them were heat pump only. People will trust us to go through this whole process, but then when it finally comes to actually get the work done and choosing a contractor, all we had was other people's networks. Now, I'm not saying all those networks were bad. Some of those are great networks. BPI was on there. They're great folks and quality contractors. But the fact is that we were handing them off to people that we had no relationship with. We didn't have any understanding of who they are. And so we felt like for us to be able to close that loop and ensure that this piece where people trusted us all the way through the process until it got to installation, we felt like we had to have our hand on a network that would enable us to close that loop and make sure that that job was seen all the way through. And so we had the choice of either starting from scratch or partnering with someone that had like mind, that had the same goals that we have, and that we could work this together. And just so happened, Bill had talked to Liz, which is Darren and I's boss. I forget, was it HR Expo or I don't know what it was.
Yeah, it was HR probably 24.
And so Bill had emailed Liz just to follow up. Liz was out on maternity leave and they sent it to me. And I'm like, oh, I know this cat. We're going to talk. Because we were talking about how are we going to do this? And then just so happens it's like this great providential timing. I got to talk to Bill and Kevin, and we all had this like mind. And just as soon as we started talking, we all wanted the same thing. And so instead of reinventing the wheel, let's work together. And so we had certain things that we need to accomplish on our end. So there was already a pledge that was in place with Better HVAC, which is really good. But because of the kind of work that we're doing, especially when we originally started this, and there were some other things that were involved, and we needed to make sure that we were closing the loop on certain things that we would be able to get reports and stuff like that, like commissioning and all. So we had a little bit of more stringent, suddenly the word I need to use just popped out of my head. I don't know if you guys find that from
Qualifications?
Yeah, so we had these additional qualifications that we needed to make sure that we had so that when we're able to report back to our folks, that we could say we got this information. So our pledge is a little more expansive, but it really boils down to the things that Better HVAC stands for, which is following all the manufacturer's instructions and codes, doing a load calculation on every job, even if it's just a replacement, following manual S sizing techniques, also manual D for duct work, proper commissioning with measurements. The proper commissioning includes measuring the actual performance of the equipment and then also educating the consumer on how to use the equipment properly. So we tied all that together. And so we came up with a badging system out of all that. We're like, we'll partner together. And for Rewire, people come in through the Better HVAC funnel, and then they could earn their Rewire badge, which means that they've already taken the Better HVAC pledge, and now they'll go through a few additional steps and then also get the Rewire badge. So anybody that has a Rewire badge is also Better HVAC. So it was just this idea that came together with these like minds. And it's been really an exciting thing to work on when you get this many people together that actually care about the same thing. So it's been a real great journey.
I'd like to add to that there's no place until now that a contractor puts in all that effort to get cross-trained with BPI, to be Rewiring America, to be ACCA, to get NCI credentials, to be able to collect it all together, except their own website. And then that website's got to get found. What we're hoping for is this is a directory to take those contractors who absolutely care so much and want to go through all this effort to prepare to do better work, get some recognition for that and get some choice and some consumer activity. Sales.
Yeah.
One more on that. There's a lot of contractors who don't install heat pumps or who say they install heat pumps, and maybe they will install heat pumps. There's like one technician who sort of knows how to do it, but they're not really invested in heat pumps. Like they haven't really gone through the training. They're not passionate about it. And when I talk to them over a beer, they're kind of saying, yeah, we don't really believe in them. And those contractors are maybe the majority of contractors out there. And so we hear from a lot of homeowners who are looking for getting a heat pump, electrification, and they're calling contractors who will do this work. And in some cases it's a no, or in some cases it's a sure, we'll do it. But it's not like a heck yes, this is what we do. We're passionate about doing this. We're trained on doing this. And so I think Rewiring America for us, it gives the consumer an ability to filter out the contractors who aren't interested in this type of work and filter for the type of contractors who really want to do this type of work and who have been through the right training. And maybe you guys can speak to this, but you're even educating the consumers to understand what it means to get a heat pump and to electrify, and educating them so that when they now match with a technician, with a contractor who's going to do that work, they have some base level of education already going into the process.
And you hit on a component we haven't really touched on yet, is the weatherization piece. This whole electrification journey is a process. It's not just installing a box. It's not just installing a heat pump, even if it's done the right way. There's also the energy auditing, the weatherization checks. And I think that's something else that Rewiring America really values in our partnership as well, is trying to grow that, because on the consumer education side, we're also worried about making sure that the consumer is educated around what needs to be done to electrify correctly. So I think that's another important component of this as well.
That is a ton of good information right there. Where can people find this directory for Better HVAC?
BetterHVAC.org, just those two words together. And by the way, it is a registered 501c3 nonprofit, as is Rewiring America. Their registration was back in 2020. Ours was in late 2024. And another aspect to this is it's a place for consumers, but it's also a place for contractors to connect. Because I think perhaps all of us have here, if you pay attention, especially to social media, contractors are looking for like-minded contractors to help out someone in another city. And that's exactly what happened to me this morning with Russ King, or last night. Kevin and I talked about that so much. And then we also talked about that we know about resources. We're astonished to hear people don't know of these resources. That's like, why? Half of this is free too. So that's why we have both the directories for pro to pro, is what we call them, homeowner to pro, and then the education center, which also has a fork in it for pros and consumers. And what we mean to do is to republish and to highlight in a digest magazine directory format content that's out there. We're not going to be necessarily creators of content, but we're going to be the aggregation place where you can either suggest something to be put there, join yourself as a contractor, or search it as a homeowner.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like there's a lot of separate, isolated efforts out in the industry that are all amazing efforts, and just nobody has brought them together into one central place. You can watch HVAC School, AC Service Tech. There's all these individual YouTube content creators. The NCI has great courses, BPI, BPA. There's all these great things out there. Just when I talk to contractors, they've only heard of one or two of those, and they haven't seen the full breadth of it and are able to say, hey, eventually, hey, this is the journey I'm on. Here's where I'm at. What are the resources for this? And typically those just aren't available to people unless you come to a symposium and you network with other like-minded people and figure out what they are and exchange that, or join the social media game, which not everybody's that invested in being on social media all the time as maybe some of us are, but you get to see a lot of the resources crossing through different groups. And we're hoping to just put that somewhere so that people can find it who aren't necessarily on Facebook all the time.
And frankly, when you get down to social media, it's hard to index. It's hard to go back. There's something you saw last month, and darn it if I can't find it anymore.
It is gone. It's who knows where, for sure. Let's talk about the pledge on Better HVAC. Kevin, you want to take that?
Sure. Just from an ethical perspective, we wanted there to be a pledge that someone would say, I'm agreeing to doing this. And part of that is just accountability, because now if they're in our network and they're not doing ethical work, if they're not sharing what they're learning, if they're not continuously learning, if they're not doing what they say they're going to do and following the principles and what we outlined in our pledge, we can't hold them accountable if they never agreed to doing those things. And so very simply, the pledge is just holding people accountable to a higher level of quality. I would also give a shout out to Corbett Lunsford, who almost started this concept of a directory of contractors. He runs some courses and workshops that then those contractors get put on a list, and it's a very exclusive list and not many people know about it. And so all of the homeowners that follow Corbett are able to find contractors on the list. It's a very small list though. And so the pledge is an extension. And we're having to innovate here because it's easy to have something really hard to find be really high quality, because you're not getting potentially people who don't have the best interest of the consumer in mind finding it. You have to be in the secret circle to know about it, and therefore you can protect the quality of it with very little effort. And just because you have to go so deep and far down the rabbit hole to find it. But with Better HVAC, our goal is to have coverage in every city, in every town, so that a consumer, no matter where they are, they can find someone nearby. It's a lot to ask. Sometimes we find someone, it's like, oh, they're 100 miles away, or they're 60 miles away. Sorry, they won't come to you. Or they will, but it'll be so expensive to get them to drive all the way out. You're not in their service area. And so to really tie a consumer to someone in their service area who meets these qualifications of doing this good work, we're going to need a pretty big network. I think we're close to 300 members, but we're going to need probably 1,000 or more to get that full coverage across Canada and the United States. And so it's a problem of scaling high quality is we have to now focus on new techniques, new tactics, because we know people are going to sign the pledge and we know people are going to try to get through onto the list just for the sake of maybe getting leads, consumer leads, and putting themselves, they think it's like the yellow pages that they want to get on. And so we need to come up with these techniques to separate the good quality work from the not quality work out there. And part of that is these badges. I know Rewiring America requires your mechanical license, up-to-date certificate of insurance. These are the sorts of things. Also, taking educational courses like BPI, you actually have to take those courses to get that badge. And then signing the pledge. There will be people who won't sign the pledge because they won't do those things and they're ethical enough not to sign that pledge. But I think the biggest part is that if someone's found to not follow those steps, at least we have the ability to then say, you signed this, you didn't follow it, now we can remove you from the list. Maybe, Bill, if you want to expand on that.
And then there's also the aspect of consumer feedback that's been built in, which is the ability for someone, a homeowner who comes to the directory, can give a testimonial, positive experience, or a complaint about work that was done. However, the complaint must come with documentation, and it can't be a trivial thing like arrived 15 minutes late. That's not really a complaint. So we're trying again to close the loop so that it will be evidentiary what has happened. And we're just trying to bridge a lot of resources, the educational, the contractor, the consumer, the feedback from the consumer. Is it perfect? No way. But is it something that didn't exist before? Yes. And it also, each one of those, let's call them more traditional organizations, has their own goals. And their goals may not be entirely tied to their contractors or professionals being found. That's the one thing which we think differentiates us. We're trying to make it so the ones that put in the effort, the work, earn the badges, get found.
Very nice. That's a big undertaking to put all that together. You guys are doing this on a volunteer basis, I understand?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Makes us look bad, Huff. We get paid.
No.
I didn't want to make anybody look bad there, but
Tag on it. Some of us get paid.
we all got to get paid somehow.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we don't eat. And if you met, well, at least me, I kind of like to eat once in a while. I can't speak to anybody else here.
I'll put out there, any professional listening to this, come take a look at the directory, consider joining, see who else is there. Even a professional, look at it, look and see who's in your area that's signed up and how do they present themselves. We're not dictating too much at all. We're dictating qualities, but not entirely every aspect. Some of the profiles are very short and concise. Some of them have even not, because we've gone through evolution, they don't have contact information in there yet. So we need to do a job to get them to go back and put their contact in so they can be found. There's a contact form that's part of the site. I like to think of better as a direction, not as a goal. It's a direction to head. And hopefully what it takes is, it doesn't mean that the contractor who has 5 badges, say we get up to 5 badges, is better than. Perhaps they are. But other people can see that. Other contractors can see that. Other professionals can see that and see if that's basically it's a raising awareness. And they can also then contact that professional and see, how's this working for you? And why did you take this? Why did you go for this badge? What does that mean to you? So again, we're trying to open up, we think is these better aspects.
It's funny, and maybe we had this conversation during some of our team meetings, but what I liked about when you guys rebranded the website, it has that LinkedIn feel to it. It has that like social connection to not only show the profile and like their history, but it has that connection point where you feel like you're enabled to reach out between contractors. I think that's something that's really powerful there.
There's no gotchas. It's not a paid thing. It's great if you message through us, but you can also go to their website and message contractors directly if you're a homeowner reaching out. But I think if you're a contractor, you can join if you're committed to doing this type of work, if this resonates. I mean, but really, if you're listening to this podcast, it probably does. I would imagine if you're using advanced tools already. And I think if you're a contractor, why not join and be found by homeowners who are like-minded, who are looking for good contractors in their area? And then Rewiring America is just going to help further with that, help find people who are interested in heat pumps and electrification. And then on the homeowner side, I think this is a great tool. We're aiming to be a great tool to filter out what sort of services are you looking for? Someone who's BPI certified to do some weatherization work or do commissioning work, and similarly do heat pump work, electrification work, etc. Maybe even use MeasureQuick. So it's a way to find the exact right fit for you in your local neighborhood.
Very nice. Well, we are running up on the end of our recording time here. We try to limit this so that all of our listeners out there don't get too bored hearing all of our voices, although there's been a pretty good discussion today. I'm glad to learn about these two organizations working together out there trying to help consumers and contractors do a better job and get heard in the industry, get heard by the homeowners, and get seen a little bit more. That's a lot of fun, and I think it's very good for both industries, the building performance, the HVAC, and what I term as the overall indoor comfort industry, because that's what we're all about really, is keeping people comfortable and healthy and safe indoors. Real quick, let's run around the group here. Any last thoughts you want to share, Darren?
I think the thing I want to drive home with both of our networks and the subset of the RA, badge, and any others that are part of the Better HVAC network is we're not trying to find the perfect contractor. We're trying to find that contractor that wants to understand more and is never complicit in what they already know. We work and operate in a very dynamic industry, and it's always growing. There's always new technologies and there's always new processes. It means there's new ways to interact and respect the household and the services that you're providing. And I think one of the things, at least at Rewiring America, we're trying to really emphasize is spotlight those types of contractors. Because not only is that going to help the contractor themselves, it's going to help the homeowner. And so I think that's what we're really wanting to drive home. And we do that through these standards and level of quality. They might not be there at that given point, but we can also look at pathways that we can help support them to get there. And I think that's a valuable trait through our network.
Very nice. Kevin, how about you? Last thoughts.
Yeah, Darren, just with the LinkedIn mention, made me realize that we haven't said this. This is also a network for individuals. If you're just I'm just the technician, I'm not the owner, I can't apply to this. Actually, Better HVAC, if you're just a technician, if you're a service manager, et cetera, you can still join up and you can list your credentials and then you can list what company you work for. And if that changes in the future, you can change what company you work for through the website and your profile stays with you. And people can still find you because they like you and your qualifications. So this is as much about contractors as it is about the individuals.
Very nice. Bill, final thoughts?
Get involved. Either jump on board, listeners, or complain about what you don't like, what you see here. Because again, we're imperfect. We're doing it as volunteers. Sometimes things get overlooked. But our heart and soul is into this. Our heart. I didn't intend that.
Ouch.
That's only one of many jokes you could have made
Kevin Hart.
about my name.
The Canadian, not the comedian. Huff, how about you? Any final thoughts for us?
My final thoughts is this. Better HVAC is a movement, and Rewire appreciates them allowing us to partner up with them and be a part of that movement. I do want to say thanks, a special thank you to Bill for his leadership and Kevin as well. And then Kevin's hard work on the being able to make all the pieces work with our product team to be able to get these things to talk to each other. I mean, obviously I'm not a software engineer, but all the hard work that has gone in and the leadership's gone in from Bill and Kevin are just greatly appreciated, that they would allow us to come alongside and partner with us and really help us. Man, it would have been so difficult for us to start from scratch and to have that base there and then to embrace us and treat us as brothers in arms, to be quite honest with you. It's refreshing. And I just hope more people see it. I hope more organizations see the benefit in this movement of better HVAC and want to be a part of it, both as contractors as well as other organizations that do quality trainings and things like that. And see more badges come along. So I'm excited about it. I do really appreciate you guys very much.
Thank you.
Everybody, want to say thank you for joining us today. And all you listeners out there, we won't bore you with anything more today. And we'll see you all in the next one.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of the Building HVAC Science Podcast. You can follow us on Facebook by searching for Building HVAC Science. If you have any questions or want to suggest a topic, reach out to us at marketing@truetechtools.com. That's TRUTECHTOOLS.com. Some of the topics we discuss require technical training for proper interpretation or safe execution. If you're a trained pro, you can proceed immediately, but if you're not, please consult with and hire a trained pro. The Building HVAC Science Podcast is a production of TrueTech Tools Limited. In full disclosure, I'm a co-owner of TrueTech. The opinions expressed are those of my guests, my co-host, myself, depending on who's speaking, of course. If you're in the market for any tools or test instruments mentioned in the podcast or just in general, take a look what TrueTech Tools has to offer. That's TRUTECHTOOLS.com. And you can use the offer code HVACBS for a nice discount. I want to thank you for listening to and hopefully following us on Building HVAC Science. And please reach out if you have any questions about the topics we discuss or want to learn more. Also, take a look at the show notes. There's a lot of good information and plenty of links in there for you to follow up with. Hopefully, you'll come back again and listen to Building HVAC Science. Take care and have a great day.